Hey, I thought of making a Lantern guide a while back, but I decided not to because I thought she was going to disappear from the meta because Elysia got her new Divine Key. But it turns out Lantern is still hanging around, so I thought, okay, better late than never. So I'll start with Lantern's simpler things, and then I'll go into the more advanced things. She's got a lot of weird quirks that are not obvious and not in skill descriptions, so my goal is to make this video shed some light on some of her really obscure mechanics. So first up is her weapon. The only thing I want to touch on this is that if you have her signature weapon, then when you use firepower rotation, it'll actually shoot a piercing blade. So only the piercing blade or the combo attack can inflict a flame, which is a debuff that she inflicts on enemies and they take more fire damage. The debuff lasts 5 seconds. So Lantern cannot combo attack every 5 seconds. There's long intervals before she can combo attack because it requires her to generate a lot of meter. So it's very important that you firepower rotate constantly to keep this buff active. During Stellar Outburst it's pretty easy because the firepower rotation cooldown is quite low, but when you're not in Stellar Outburst then the firepower rotation is actually 4 seconds, so it's almost as long as the debuff time here, so you'll want to firepower rotate as frequently as possible. Next up is one of her passives. This one's pretty straightforward. Every firepower rotation increases your next combo attack by an additional 400% of attack damage, and you can do it up to 3 times maximum for 1200%. Entering Stellar Outburst immediately gives you 3 stacks. Next is another one of her passives. So for this one, when she uses combo attack or ultimate, then she gives a self buff fire shower, and it makes all enemies take more elemental damage. So this is also important when you're using her as a support. This buff has no icon. Next up is the self buff crack shot. This one actually has a buff icon, so it's easy to tell if you have it or not. You can get it with QTE or firepower rotation, but when you're in Stellar Outburst you can also get it just by attacking, so it'll pretty much always be up. And next is one of her ultimate skills. So this one, her combo attack makes the next ultimate do 400% attack of extra fire damage, so you always want to combo attack before you ult. Next up is another one of her ultimate skills. For this one, every time a teammate consumes 30 or 50 SP in one go, then Lantern will do more damage, 10% or 35% more fire damage. So you'll get the 35% bonus when you enter Stellar Outburst for free, but when you're not in Stellar Outburst then you'll need to activate this manually. If Senadina's in the team, you'll always have the 30 SP buff because she uses 30 SP to buff you at the beginning of battle and also every time Stellar Outburst ends. But for the 50 SP one, you'll need to actually use Senadina's ultimate or the ultimate of another team member. Next is a skill that you can get only at S2 rank or higher. It increases the damage of your combo attack, but it does it through adding 8 additional hits. So this matters because when hit count mechanics are involved, S2 Lanterns and higher will do more hits when they use their combo attack. Next is one of her Astral Ring skills. So this one is actually very long, but the only takeaway from here that's important is when you enter Stellar Outburst you get 2 blocks of concentrated blast energy, and that improves your combo attack's damage. So you want to use combo attack before you summon phantoms, because phantoms give you concentrated blast energy as well, but you can only hold 2 at a time. So you should combo attack first to empty out the 2 that you start with, and then use phantoms to get 2 back, and then do your next combo attack with those 2 concentrated blast energies. Next is one of her evasion skills. So for this one, if your evasion is an ultimate evasion, then Lantern will deal an extra 60% attack of fire damage. This skill is one of the main causes of damage variance. If you're using Lantern's evasion to deal damage, but she actually evades something, you'll do more damage than normal. Alright, that's actually all the easy stuff. So now we're going to go into the advanced things. So we're going to start with the other evasion skill. So this one breaks down all the different weapon types and how many hits it does and how much damage it does. So rapid shot crossbow 6 times 61, shotgun 12 times 29, and submachine gun is 16 times 24. So there's a couple important things that are not mentioned in this skill description, and that is there is actually a long and a short evade. The long evade is if you evade and then you don't interrupt Lantern, you just let the whole evade play out, then it'll do the numbers that are shown in the description here. Short evade is if you interrupt the evade with any action, whether it's evading, jumping, character swaps, Stellar Outburst, ult, attacking, and even walking. And if you do that, then you actually lose a third of the hits. So the crossbow will only deal 4 hits. The shotgun only deals 8 hits. and the submachine gun only deals 10 hits. That one is actually not exactly a third because 16 is not divisible by 3. One thing to note is that the game's combo counter isn't accurate for some of Lantern's attacks, such as her shotgun basics and also her SMG evasion attack. For this example, her SMG evasion attack should actually have 16 and 10 hits, but it shows 8 and 5. Next is one of her weapon skills. So this one specifically is about the Vestiges that you summon when you use firepower rotation. So Vestiges are actually pretty interesting because the animation that they do is the next sequence of Lantern's basic. So if you were to do Crossbow 1 and then you weapon swapped, then the Vestige would do Crossbow 2. If you did Crossbow 2 and then firepower rotation, then the Vestige does Crossbow 3. And if Lantern does Crossbow 3, then it will actually loop back. So the Vestige will actually do Crossbow 1. Similarly, if you do Shotgun 1, Vestige will do Shotgun 2. If you do Shotgun 2, it will loop back. The Vestige will animate Shotgun 1. And the SMG, there's only one type of attack that it can do. So the Vestige will just do the regular SMG, which is the constant stream of fire. If you do an evasion and then firepower rotation, then the Vestige will always do basic 1 of the weapon type. Which is interesting because evasions actually don't break Lantern's attack sequence. Lantern can do, say, Crossbow 1, Crossbow 2, evade, and then Crossbow 3. But if you actually did Crossbow 1, Crossbow 2, evade, and then weapon rotate, then the Vestige actually does Crossbow 1. It does not obey the rule where it doesn't break Lantern's basic sequence. So it's actually cool to see the Vestige do different animations, but unfortunately, no matter what attack the Vestige is doing, it always does 240% attack of fire damage. I feel like this is actually a downside because the character could have had a lot more depth if the Vestige actually did the damage of the basic attack that it did, because then you would actually start to consider which attacks to offload to the Vestige. Obviously, attacks that are slow and have long animations but do high damage are ideal because then the Vestige can do it and Lantern doesn't have to pay the time cost. Instead, Lantern would have already firepower rotated into a different weapon and is doing something else. Unfortunately, that's not how Vestiges work. So no matter what attack you make the Vestige do, it's always 240% attack of damage. So the next skill is actually the same weapon skill, it's just a different paragraph. So this one is about the actual attack that Lantern is doing when she uses firepower rotation. So the only thing to note here is the shotgun to submachine gun, it does 8 times 121%. The combo counter will actually have an extra hit, so it'll be total 9, because one of the hits is the Piercing Blade that happens from firepower rotation from her signature weapon. So this is actually interruptible. If you mash attack after you swap to the submachine gun, then you will actually only get 5 hits, and then you will start doing the regular submachine gun, which is a lot weaker. It's only 49% attack of fire damage. Just a quick note on the damage numbers on the screen, you'll see that the ratio is not actually 121% and 49% because Senadina's middle stig and also her weapons synergy buff teammates' weapon skills specifically. So the submachine gun, when you weapon rotate into it, is a weapon skill, but the submachine gun when you're firing it normally is not a weapon skill. So it's actually getting less buffs, so that's why the ratio is not what you would expect. To maximize the damage of the firepower rotation, it's best to let Lantern get out all 8 hits of the SMG first before taking another action. Here's a bonus tip. You can see that all of the firepower rotation SMG hits have come out when the weapon cooldown is at around 3/4, so you can do another action at the 9 o'clock mark, whether it's mashing attack to continue to fire, or evade to do an evasion attack. Now let's talk about which weapon type Lantern should be on when she uses a phantom summon, and the clear answer is the crossbow. There's 2 reasons why crossbow is the best. The first is because the Vestiges do not work properly with other weapon types. So here's an example of the crossbow Vestige. It's using crossbow 1, so it's a single hit. We'll use the damage as the control value. Remember, all Vestiges deal the same amount of damage. 255202. Remember this number. So here we're using Phantom Summon, and then we're going to weapon rotate into Shotgun. Let's see if the Vestige does the right amount of damage. 255202. Looks good. Now let's see what happens for the shotgun. It's really hard to see what's going on, isn't it? The first thing to note is that the Vestige is doing shotgun 1, and Lantern's shotgun 1 does 6 hits twice, so 2 shots of 6 hits. So if you take our special number, 255202, and you divide that by 12, you get 21266 if you truncate the decimals. What we're not quite sure of yet is whether or not it's actually doing 12 hits, because the combo counter is not reliable for shotgun hits. But with a couple screenshots we can verify this. Here we can see that on the left side there are 3 instances of 21266 being stacked on each other. On the right hand side we can clearly see that there are 3 instances of 21266. For this one, it's easy to see 2 numbers on the left side and another 2 on the right side, but both sides actually have a third number as well. It's just hidden behind. It's hard to see, but if you look closely enough you can spot it. So with this we can confirm that the Vestige is working as intended. Now let's look at what happens if you do Phantom Summon and then weapon rotate from shotgun to the SMG. It's very easy to spot that the Vestige is broken because it's supposed to do 2 shots of 6 hits each, but the second shot never happens, so it lost half of its damage. Next we'll take a look at the SMG. The Vestige SMG hits 8 times, so if you take 255202 and you divide that by 8, you get 31900 if you truncate the decimals. So in this example, the Vestige is working as intended. Now let's take a look at what happens if you Phantom Summon and then Firepower rotation from SMG to Crossbow. The Vestige actually disappears without even attacking. Did you see a single instance of 31900? Because I sure didn't. The second reason is the attacks that are actually getting replaced as a result of doing this action. So normally you get the weapon rotation attack, and then you get the sequence that you would do normally with the firearm, whether it's crossbow, shotgun, or SMG. And when you summon the Phantom, because the animation is so long, it effectively replaces all the actions that Lantern would have taken with the weapon otherwise. So it would make the most sense to use the Phantom Summon on the weapon cycle that does the least amount of damage, and it just so happens that Crossbow is the weakest of the 3. There are some damage calculations in a later section, so you can refer to those if you're interested. When Lantern is in Stellar Outburst, she actually has a different jump that she can do. If you jump while standing still, then Lantern will actually use her rocket launcher to propel herself upwards. This is the same jump that she does if you execute a combo attack by holding attack on the ground. If you jump while walking, then Lantern will do the regular jump. You'll notice that the regular jump is a lot faster, and using this jump to get into the air before doing her combo attack is actually much faster. While we're on the topic of combo attacks, which weapon should Lantern do the combo attack with? So the answer is Crossbow, and there's 2 reasons for this. The first reason is related to how early Lantern can act, and if you do the SMG to Crossbow firepower rotation, it's very fast, so Lantern can jump almost immediately after. Crossbow to shotgun isn't bad either, but shotgun to SMG is really slow. Lantern can't really afford to be slow because she can actually fit 12 firepower rotations in Stellar Outburst, but the very last one is a very tight fit. The second reason is that the combo attack puts Lantern into the air, and that's very important because Lantern's aerials will actually immediately teleport her to the ground, and then she actually does the basic one on the ground. So Crossbow is the most effective weapon for that because the Crossbow 1 basic is the fastest. So she'll teleport to the ground, Crossbow 1, and then immediately firepower rotation and summon a Vestige and move on to the next weapon. Shotgun will be a little bit slower because it does the full Shotgun 1 animation, and that will delay her firepower rotation. As for the SMG, the startup animation is also a little bit longer, so the weapon rotation is delayed. And also during the startup animation, Lantern doesn't fire anything, so you'll see that she actually weapon rotates without shooting, so she actually will deal no damage, which makes the SMG especially bad for this. Lantern actually has a very interesting issue with her Vestiges when she's in Stellar Outburst. In Stellar Outburst, she can actually swap weapons without attacking, So as long as her weapon skill is not on cooldown, if you press attack on the ground, she will swap without attacking. So what ends up happening is no Vestige gets summoned, so Lantern will lose damage. So just now, there was no Crossbow Vestige summoned. And then there was no Shotgun Vestige. And then similarly, there will be no Submachine Gun Vestige if you were to do Submachine Gun into Crossbow. Because you can't attack from the ground, the workarounds are to attack from the air, evade first then attack, or Phantom Summon if you can, and then attack. Lantern's ultimate always grounds her, so you have to be careful when using it in the air, for example after a combo attack. Because if you attack afterwards, you're going to be on the ground, so that triggers the firepower rotation with no Vestige summon. Her grounding ult is useful in some other situations though. For example, in a World Star team, when Lantern swaps in, sometimes she might swap in the air. If you have her QTE on, then she will always swap in the air. And you can use her ult to ground her so that she can start her resonance attacks more quickly. One cool thing about Lantern's ult is that it can reset her basic attack sequence, so you can do basic attack 1, ult, basic attack 1. It's a pretty useful technique, but it's very situational since it requires your ultimate to be available. In non-Stellar Outburst, you can actually use it to do the whole entire shotgun cycle without ever using shotgun 2, which is one of her worst moves because it takes about the same amount of time as shotgun 1, but it does half the damage. In Stellar Outburst, the ult reset gives Lantern access to some unique attack sequences. Next, let's talk about the Vestige bug. This also contributes to Lantern's damage variance. Some of the video footage up to this point has actually triggered the Vestige bug already, but I didn't talk about it back then because I didn't want to convolute everything. But now, we'll talk about everything Vestige bug. So what the bug actually is if Lantern is just about to finish one of her basic animations, but then she weapon rotates out of it, then the Vestige will actually finish that attack and then do the next attack in the sequence as well. So the Vestige actually does 2 attacks. It can be triggered off Crossbow 1, Crossbow 2, and Shotgun 1. Maybe others, but those are the 3 that I'm familiar with. The bug will affect the amount of damage that Lantern deals. We'll go through all 3 cases. First, let's take a look at how much damage Lantern's Crossbow 1 does. And it's 212668. This attack is 200% of Lantern's attack value. So here you can see the magic number 255202 again, which we confirmed is the Vestige Crossbow 1 damage from earlier. We know that's not Lantern's damage because Vestige does 240%, Lantern's Crossbow 1 actually only does 200%, which lines up with the 212668 we saw earlier. After this, the Vestige will actually continue with Crossbow 2. Then if you divide 255202 by 2, because Crossbow 2 is 2 hits, then you'll get 2 hits of 127601, which you can see here. I always thought that Lantern was doing Crossbow 1 and the Vestige was doing Crossbow 2, but it turns out the Vestige is doing Crossbow 1 and Crossbow 2, and Lantern actually never attacked. In this case, Lantern actually did more damage. The damage went up from 200% to 240%, so she got 40% more. Now for the Crossbow 2 case. So here we start with Lantern's Crossbow 1, 212668, and Lantern's Crossbow 2, just the first hit, 101017. Then we weapon rotate, and then the Vestige actually does the second hit of Crossbow 2. One hit of Lantern's Crossbow 2 is 95%, but when the Vestige does it, then it's 240% divided by the number of hits, and it's 2 hits, so it becomes 120%. So if you take the ratio of these two numbers, the math actually checks out. So Lantern actually is doing 25% more damage here, boosting the shot from 95 to 120. Afterwards, the Vestige continues on with Crossbow 3. Now let's take a look at the Shotgun 1 case. So this is the amount of damage that Shotgun 1 deals. It's 6 hits of 48913. The second shot should do the same amount of damage. It is also 6 hits of 48913. But wait, the damage is much less. What's going on? So this is actually the Vestige finishing the attack. So shotgun 1 does 12 total hits because it's 6 hits but twice. So if you take the magic number that we have, which is 25502, and you divide it by 12, then you get 21266. So it should be 6 hits of 21266, which is what we see here. Lantern shotgun 1 is 552% of damage, but this is only half of the damage because it's only one of the 2 shots. So this is only 276%. And the Vestige does 240%, but similarly this is only half of the attack, so it's actually 120%. So we're actually going down from 276 to 120, which is a loss of 156% of damage. So this is a case where the Vestige bug makes it a lot worse. The Vestige will continue on with shotgun 2 after, since the bug makes the Vestige do 2 attacks. So in this case it will be the latter half of shotgun 1 and then shotgun 2. To avoid the bug, you just have to make sure that you swap after Lantern finishes the attack rather than right before she finishes it. So here's an example of the shotgun actually doing full damage this time. Now let's go over Lantern's options on each weapon cycle, and then we'll close out the guide with a full Stellar Outburst demonstration. First is swap into Crossbow, basic 1, 2, 3, and then swap into Shotgun. Second is swap into Crossbow, double long Crossbow evade, then swap to Shotgun. The next one is swap to Crossbow, double short evade, and Crossbow 1, then swap to Shotgun. The next one is swap to Crossbow, long Crossbow evade, Crossbow 1, 2, and swap to Shotgun. Do note that for this one, if you do the short Crossbow evade, you'll actually go too fast, and Lantern will end up doing her Crossbow 3 because she can't weapon swap yet, and then that will delay your weapon swap, so it's not good. Another interesting thing is, if your timing is a little bit off, and Lantern actually swaps in between the 2 hits of her Crossbow 2, you'll actually trigger the Vestige bug. The last sequence requires Lantern's ultimate to be available, and it is swap Crossbow 1, 2 ult, Crossbow 1, 2 swap. The timing of this sequence will also guarantee that you get the double Vestige bug. If you do Crossbow 1, 2 ult, Crossbow 1, 2, the last Crossbow 2 will not fit both hits. Lantern will do the first hit, and then the Vestige will do the second hit, and then continue to do Crossbow 3. So here is everything tabled out. The first sequence is swap Crossbow 1, 2, 3 swap. It's very easy to do, and the damage is very high. The next sequence is swap long evasion swap. The main benefit of this one is that it gives Lantern very good movement options because she can evade twice in any direction she wants, and the damage is pretty much the same with only a 2% difference. The next one I would say is inferior to the double long evasion, and this one is the swap short evasion, Crossbow basic 1 swap. It does a little bit less damage, so I would just recommend doing the double long evasion. The next one after that is the swap long evasion basic 1, 2 swap. So this one is interesting because if your timing is off, your damage actually improves from the Vestige bug. The damage is very, very high. It's a little bit trickier to do, but it's not that bad. And then finally, the last sequence, it requires your ult to be available, but it's the highest damage sequence that Lantern can do. And you're guaranteed the double Vestige bug. For the shotgun options, we have swap shotgun 1, shotgun 2 swap. Swap short evasion, long evasion swap. Swap short evade, shotgun 1 swap. Be careful not to trigger the Vestige bug or you'll lose damage. And finally, this sequence requires Lantern's ult to be available, and it is swap shotgun 1 ult shotgun 1 swap. Again, be careful not to trigger the Vestige bug. So here are the shotgun options tabled out. Swap shotgun 1, 2 swap is the highest damage, but it is way too slow, and Lantern is going to miss out on a lot of damage at the end of Stellar Outburst because she won't have enough time, so not recommended. The swap short evade long evade swap is not recommended because the damage is too low. The swap short evade shotgun 1 swap is by far the best option. The damage is high and it's fast. Just be careful not to trigger the Vestige bug. You can also reverse the order if you feel more comfortable, so you can do shotgun 1 and then short evade. The last sequence requires the ultimate, but it is very strong. But it's also difficult because it's slow, so you might miss the 12th weapon rotation in Stellar Outburst if you use it and don't play flawlessly. Finally, the SMG options. This one is if you keep mashing attack after swapping to SMG. It'll only do 5 hits of the weapon rotation SMG, which is the strong one, and then it'll transition to the weaker SMG, and it'll do 9 hits of that. The next one will be if you time the SMG press, so after weapon rotating into SMG, let all 8 firepower rotation SMG shots fire, and then when the weapon cooldown is at the 9 o'clock mark, you can start mashing attack, and then it'll transition into the weaker SMG, and it'll do 4 hits of that. And then we have the full 8 hits of the firepower rotation SMG, followed by a short evade. Here's a table for the SMG values. So actually letting the firepower rotation SMG shoot fully is better because the damage is a lot higher compared to the regular SMG. So you can see the long swap SMG followed by the shorter SMG is 1164%, which is really good, while the short swap SMG followed by the longer regular SMG is less damage, so then I wouldn't recommend that one. If Senadina is in the team, and she usually is, then the SMG swap gets even better because it's actually considered a weapon skill, and Senadina's middle stigmata and her weapon synergy buff only weapon skills, so the SMG swap will get stronger while the SMG damage doesn't change. The last one is actually the best one, which is the full firepower SMG hits, 8 hits, followed by a short evade. The only downside is that it is slightly more difficult. You actually need to time the evade correctly so that you don't cut short your SMG swap damage. And at the same time, you don't want to evade too late because you will weapon rotate too late. And now onto the final and most exciting part of this video, a full Stellar Outburst rotation. So we'll start with the combo attack, followed by a Phantom Summon. And then weapon rotate into shotgun. And then we use evade and then shotgun 1. SMG wait until the cooldown hits 9 o'clock and then do an evasion. And then swap to crossbow, then do a long evasion, followed by crossbow 1-2. Weapon swap to shotgun, and then you can evade shotgun 1 again. SMG, do an evasion at 9 o'clock again. And then after the weapon swap, let both crossbow bolts hit first before summoning the Phantom. You get a little bit of extra damage that way. Those 2 crossbow bolts are from the actual weapon rotation attack. Swap the shotgun and do an evasion, and then shotgun 1 again. And then SMG, again, just wait until 9 o'clock and then do an evasion. And then here's where you do the jump combo attack with the crossbow. And then after swapping to shotgun, do evasion shotgun 1 again. And then for the SMG, just wait until 9 o'clock and then do an evasion and then weapon swap back to crossbow. And this will be the 12th weapon swap before Stellar Outburst ends. One thing to note is that Stellar Outburst will run out while these attacks are ongoing, and Lantern will probably start doing around 75 to 80% of her damage instead, but it's still well worth it. Also, the final weapon rotation happens to be the 3rd weapon rotation after the last combo attack, so it sets her up nicely for when she comes back in through QTE later and does her combo attack, because it'll be a fully buffed one. One more thing, in the demonstration I didn't use the ult, because the ult is very flexible and can be used in a lot of different places, and many times it will be used in different places because the ult will come off cooldown at different times. The only thing to avoid is using ult and then using firepower rotation immediately after, because if you do that, then you will firepower rotate without a Vestige. And with that, that's the end of the guide. See you in the next one.